Welcome, Winthrop, to the Winthrop Town Council meeting of July 20th, 2021. The meeting is being started at 7 p.m. And the councils are in the Harvey Room. And we are also on WCAT, and we are remote. The call-in number to join us on the remote is 1-301-5. I'm sorry. It's 1-301-715-8592. The ID number is 840-4030-3036 pound. You are welcome to join us for our public hearings and for public comment, which we will have both during the meeting. I will repeat those numbers just before the public hearings. Could I please have a roll call?
Councilor Ruggiero.
Here.
Councilor Flockhart.
Here.
Councilor DeMarco.
Here.
Councilor Terry.
Here.
Councilor Honan.
Here.
Councilor Conti.
Present.
Councilor Farino.
Here.
Vice President Christopher. President Boncory.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. There being a quorum, I will call the meeting to order, and I would ask Councilor Terry to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I would like a motion to approve the minutes of the executive session that were sent out with the minutes of the regular meeting of July 6th. I have a motion to approve the minutes of the executive session. Motion made by Councilor Terry, seconded by Councilor Honan. Is there any discussion on those minutes? Is there any corrections, any amendments? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the minutes of the executive session of July 6th signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, seeing none opposed, we'll now move on, and I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of July 6, 2021.
Motion.
Second.
Motion again by Councilor Terry, seconded by Councilor Honan to approve the minutes of the July 6th meeting. Is there any discussion? Are there any amendments? Are there any corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, hearing none, minutes are approved. Under general information, there's quite a bit to inform the town of. And the first thing is that today, our former town manager, Austin Faison, and myself entered into a joint termination agreement in which...
I would just correct the termination, it's a separation agreement.
It's a separation agreement. Okay, I believe it. Okay. Into a separation agreement. It was jointly signed by both parties today, and it was signed in accordance with the direction of the council in the executive session of July 6th. Austin and I will be producing a statement, a press release that will go out to the public, and it will be probably in the transcript this week. In Austin's words, he is grateful to have had the opportunity to serve as Winthrop's town manager. He is proud of our collective accomplishments during this tenure, including the work over the last year to support the town's response to and recovery from COVID-19 pandemic. He stated that he is thankful for the support of all of his town employees that he worked alongside of, as well as the town council. And on my behalf, I wish to thank Austin for his years of service and his commitment to our community. we are grateful for his contributions to our town, and we wish him all the best of luck in the future. Good luck, Weston, if you are watching. Okay, moving on. Under general information, I have citations to give out to the people who have left our committees over the past month, and I would like to read one of each of them. The first one are for the members of the Conservation Commission, and they read, Town of Winthrop, Town Council citation, be it hereby known to all that the Town of Winthrop and the Winthrop Town Council hereby offers its appreciation to Julia Howington of the Conservation Committee on behalf of the residents of the Town of Winthrop. We extend our most sincere gratitude for your past devotion and commitment to the Conservation Commission, and wish you well and all the best in your future endeavors, given this 20th day of July 2021 at Winthrop, Mass. It's signed by myself and all council members, Rich Farino, James Lettieri, Nick LaConte, Tracy Honan, Peter Christopher, Steve Ruggiero, Barbara Flockhart, and Robert DeMarco. The second one is identical, and that is from Melissa Kaiser. I'd like to thank both Julia and Melissa for their service to the town of Winthrop. The second citations are for members of the licensing board, and I would like to read them, and they are basically the same, except one says chairman. Town of Winthrop Town Council citation. Be it known that the Town of Winthrop and the Winthrop Town Council hereby offers its appreciation to Mark Champdelane, Chair of the Board of License, on behalf of the residents of the Town of Winthrop, and we extend our most sincere gratitude for your past devotion and commitment to the Board of License, and wish you well and all the best in your future endeavors, given this 20th day of July 2021 at Winthrop, Massachusetts. Signed by the Council President Philip Poncory and Council members Rich Farino, James Lettieri, Nick LaConte, Tracy Honan, Peter Christopher, Steve Ruggiero, Barbara Flockhart, and Robert DeMarco. And the second one is for Richard Ackerman of the Board of License as well. Okay. That is what we have for general information and recommendations. There is also a recommendation that Winthrop people, we're about 72% vaccinated, and we've had a bump up in the past 14 days. We've had like 9 cases of COVID in this town, so we are suggesting and hoping that people will go and get shots that have not been vaccinated yet. Vaccinations are available at CVS in Winthrop and East Boston and at Target. Please get your vaccinations, and let's make sure they go back to 0. You know, it was a bad week with us having 9 people that contracted COVID in Winthrop. So let's try to get vaccinated if you are unvaccinated. All right, moving on to public hearing. Again, the number for the public hearing is 1-301-715-8592 with an ID number of 840-4030-3036 pound. Okay. The first public hearing I will open is that the town council appropriate $80,000 for the E.B. Newton clock tower repairs.
Council President,
Yes.
the Finance Committee met this evening. Councilors Farino, Councilors Honan were there with me, and we discussed this as we've discussed over the past several council meetings, and this would take $80,000 out of the E.B. Newton fund balance, basically reserve fund, revolving fund, which currently has $175,000 and change. And this would take care of much-needed repairs to the clock tower. This does come out of finance with positive recommendation. We will discuss it more in old business.
Okay. Is there anyone else that wants to be heard on the $80,000 for the E.B. Newton Clock Tower on the council? Anyone else want to be heard? If not, anyone in the public want to be heard?
You have Jack.
Jack, this is only on the clock tower.
Jack is muted.
Jack, you're muted. Did you want to speak on clock tower, or is your hand up for public comment?
Good job, Richie. Thank you.
Okay, that's it. All right. All right, any other comments? Hearing any other comments in public hearing? Hearing none, I will move this to new business and, I'm sorry, to old business, and we will close the public hearing. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, next public hearing is on the town council's transfer of $155,000 from salary reserve to the fire department budget collective bargaining.
Council President, the Finance Committee also met this evening to discuss this. This is a procedural vote. There's been a contract settled for fiscal years 20 and 21, and this is to transfer money to fulfill the obligation of that contract. This $155,000 will come from salary reserve, which starts fiscal 22 with a balance of $450,000, so this will reduce that down to $295,000. This does come out of committee with positive recommendation.
All right, any councilors want to be heard on this? Anyone in the public like to be heard on the public hearing on the $155,000 to the fire department? Seeing no hands, I will take it that there is no public interested in speaking on this. Okay. I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion.
Motion's been made by Council Flockhart, seconded by Council Lettieri. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. We will now open the meeting for public comment on all issues having to do with the town and being discussed in tonight's meeting. Are there anyone in public comment? John, do you want to speak? Anyone in television land that wants to be heard?
Excuse me, Larissa, could you, is Diane Sands there?
Are there any hands on up there?
It might be.
There's no hands. Is Diane Sands, is that her phone number? 7225?
Sure, she said she called in, she wants to speak.
I think it's *6, *6 or
Okay.
*9 on their phone.
Okay, it's star
All right,
6.
do we have someone or do we not?
Maybe.
The phone-in caller, if you hit *6 or *9, it's been a while since I...
Start 6.
Right.
*6 will indicate that you want to speak on public comment. You can hit.
Okay, if anyone's wishing to speak in public comment that is on the Zoom, please hit *6. If not, we will move on. I don't see any hands. All right, there will be another public comment session at the end. Under correspondence, I believe you have a couple of letters, Denise?
I did receive several emails on the DEI school website to be reopened, please. And then Karen Chavez did write a letter in reference to the golf course shed.
Okay, and those will be filed on record for this meeting.
Yes, yep.
Okay. All right, moving on. Committee reports, Finance Commission.
Finance Committee did meet this evening. As discussed earlier, we had 3 items on the agenda. The first was the $80,000 transfer for the E.B. Newton Clock Tower, which, as stated earlier, we did come out with positive recommendation, much-needed repairs. The second was the transfer of $155,000 from salary reserve to the Winthrop Fire Department salary line, which was a contractual settlement for fiscal 20 and 21. That also came out with positive recommendation, and those 2 will be discussed under old business. We also discussed the dog park and golf shed, which was an RFP that went out a couple of months back. It did come back with bids. The bids came in above our estimates by roughly $125,000. We cannot come to a consensus yet on how to fund that, but we did discuss, we think it's imperative that we come back to the council and vote one way or the other to give the authority to go forward with the bid, and then figure out where we would, where that extra money would come from. But we have 60 days to answer the bid. It's going to be over 60 once we get to our next meeting. So it's imperative that we get back to the winning bidder. Director Calla came before us at the last meeting and made very valid points with the fact that we're limited in going back out to rebid. We cannot lessen the footprint of the shed for several reasons, including the fact that the shed packet has been purchased. So we're limited to go out with a lower package. So we feel, or Steve feels, and I think it's hard to disagree, that under these current circumstances that the country and town is in with bidding in terms of building projects, we feel the bids would only come back higher. In hindsight now, it would have been great to get it done 2 years ago, and it would have been probably a lot less. But so we did not come out with a vote. We do think that it needs to be voted on by the council with a recommendation to go forward. Well, go forward or not go forward, but it is imperative. It's a timing issue that was discussed at the last meeting. It's nothing new. It's just a question as to, we have two options: to go back and accept the bid or to decline the bid. And declining the bid could end up costing us more money in the end. We do have an obligation under current contracts to build a shed. And as far as the dog park goes, we have gotten an incredible commitment from the Winthrop Foundation for $100,000, and we matched that from the council through a vote several months back for $25,000. So I think the commitment is there, and that dog park has been talked about for an awful long time. And again, I always say in severe reverence to former Councilor McDuffie, I want to get that dog park done. Yes. That's a decision, and we will bring that up under old business also.
Okay. There is no Rules and Ordinance Committee report because they did not meet.
President Boncory, we did have a committee on appointments, commissions, and committees meeting last week.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
So, real quick, the point of this meeting was just to make sure that our committees were meeting on a frequent basis, as they should be. I want to tell you that the first thing we did was talk about how great the Finance Committee has been with meeting way more than I think you guys expected to. So, congratulations on that, if congrats is in order. But, we find that all the committees, for the most part, are meeting on a regular basis, and if they haven't been, there hasn't been a need at that particular time for them to meet. So we're going to continue to hold all the committees accountable with regular meetings.
All right. So you will check on all the committees.
Yep.
During the year. Okay. Excellent. All right. Moving on to Town Manager's report. Terry?
Sure. Good evening, everyone, and thank you. Denise, you mind just passing that down? My first order of business in my report would be a letter from Fire Chief Paul Flanagan. He sent this on June 30th to me, but in light of the circumstances and what we were dealing with, it wasn't imperative to be distributed at that time. So he writes to inform me as the interim town manager that on September 30th, he'll retire from his position as fire chief. Serving Winthrop's fire chief has been an honor of his lifetime. He retires with 43 years of service, which probably concludes my family's tenure within the department, which spans nearly 120 consecutive years. Collectively, my service, along with that of my father, grandfather, brother, totals 162 years of service to the Winthrop Fire Department. I leave this office confident that I approached every shift and every day as chief with the same values that define my family's service with both the town of Winthrop and the department. and the good of the department and of our town has always been paramount. Of a commitment to providing residents with exceptional fire rescue services has been his priority. So I just wanted to thank him for his service. His letter does go on. We will certainly post his letter for public viewing to give it its adequate due, and then we'll certainly work on transition in the fire department with the fire chief. It's been an honor and a pleasure to work with him as my co-partner in public safety. We've gotten along extremely well. There's not an incident that happened in Winthrop that we both didn't co-respond to, whether it was a police incident or a fire incident, and that we've worked on collectively. So I'll certainly miss him, although he's not going far. He stands committed to the community and to assist us in future endeavors, and which I'm grateful for. So we will tap his abilities adequately. I tried to get him to run for council. He said no. So I know there's some openings. So anyone that wants to run for council, please make sure you go to the clerk's office and take out your papers. Ingleside Park, just an update on that. So because of the rain and also employee issues, last week they were supposed to reconstruct the actual playground area. It got washed out and rained out. Tomorrow they were going to come. It's going to be stormy tomorrow. So Thursday is committed that they're going to be on site. Yeah, all the equipment is in. So we just got to put it together and put the park back together. So that is on schedule for Thursday. I talked to the Parks and Recs director, who will be joining us at 7:30. So if we have any questions for him, he had a previous commitment. Tennis courts in Miller's Field, I'd like to talk about, but if we could just come back to that. I have my intern here, Paul, and I'm not going to hack your last name, so I'll let you introduce yourself, Paul, and then ask him to do a short presentation on the ferry. Again, this is the ferry is something we all want, but it's something that we can afford is the question. So I think it's important to give the council a rundown of where we are and where we stand today, and how long does the services last based on the reserve accounts and the actual monies coming in. We budgeted $450,000 for the ferry, but it was all depending on grants and also ticket sales. So Paul, please introduce yourself to the council. And he's been a great asset to me. He's leaving in 2 weeks. So he's been here since May, end of May?
Yeah, late May.
Late May.
So hi, I'm Paul Manganaro. I've been interning with Chief Delahanty for the last over 2 months. And recently we've been working with the finance department to come up with a financial analysis of the ferry. And we did this using the current year's costs to get some rates for things like boat fuel and other recurring operating costs, as well as years past. So we can go to the next slide.
There we go.
So these, for the 2021 ferry season, these are the current actual revenues and expenses. Up in the left, top left, the green section is revenue, the yellow on the right is expenses, and in the bottom left we have a profit loss calculation. You'll see so far, since June 9th, which is when the ferry began operation this year, they brought in just under $9,000 in revenue, while accumulating $36,298 in expenses. In total, that leaves the ferry through a month of operation, because our most recent data was July 6th, with a deficit of $27,000, which translates to a weekly loss of about $7,000 so far through the first month. Next slide. This slide is a projection for the rest of 2021. We used an end date of November 19th. We know that the ferry season generally ends mid to late November. And I have all of our projection information here if anyone has any questions. We went through each budget item individually and got totals at the end. You'll see revenue for the rest of 2021 we project to be $39,638 for 2021 revenue total of $48,616. We project the rest of the expenses from here on out to be $162,958 for a 2021 total of $203,457,000. In the end, I know it's a lot of numbers, we project a total loss for the 2021 season to be $154,841 for the Ferry enterprise. We wanted to translate this into something where we could tell how fast this money's going away. You can see we highlighted weekly rates of loss. At the top is the actual so far this year. As we just went over, it's $7,000 a week they've been losing. And in the future, out until November 19, we project that weekly loss to be about $6,395. That's lowered slightly because of some maintenance costs that we hope won't stay as high as they were so far through the first month. And we figured, of course, this year the ferry started late. So we thought it would be worthwhile to project what a full season would look like. We went off the 2019 date since that was before COVID. That would be April 22nd to November 29th. This is when we used a lot of cost and revenue information from previous years. And you'll see that the total revenue for a regular season, we used 2022 hoping that we'd return to normalcy then. We expect the revenue to be about $68,500 for a full season in the future, while the expenses will be about $345,500. That leaves a total loss of $277,000, and if it will continue to operate through a full season, it will be running a deficit of about $9,414 per week.
Just on the full season compared to this season, we're not operating weekends right now. We don't have enough captains, and the full-time employee's position has not been filled. So that was before being filled by Tangi Safuni. It was her salary was split between Ferry and regular general fund salaries. So the full complete loss is not really capsulated because we don't have positions filled and we're not running a full schedule. That's why the full season projection was necessary, to let the council know. Where we stand right now on grants, DEP has not gotten back to us, except that they have received our request. We had conversations with the DOT. Senator Boncory is still working DOT. We're hoping for a commitment from DOT. But if I don't get that commitment, then, you know, I think we have about $30,000 in reserve left. You know, I cannot run any type of service in the deficit spending. My auditor and accountant, Robbie, will be the first one knocking on my door saying we can't do this, and rightfully so. So I wanted to, update the council to where we talked about the ferry before, where we stand today, and how we're going to move forward. So that's certainly a conversation we can put on the agenda. You know, again, I'm hopeful that we do get some grant money to patch this discussion through, and whether or not we'll get full year coverage or not. But you know, we don't have the talent or experience or expertise to be running a transportation service. You know, that's been certainly my opinion since I was up doing the interim town manager last year. I liked the ferry service. I used the ferry service with my children and my wife. You know, but again, you have to have that expertise to make this a profitable business. So every enterprise account has to be looked at as a separate business. And then you can decide whether or not you want to use general fund money to supplement that private business, that enterprise account, for lack of a better word. So that, I just really, Paul, when he first interviewed for the internship, we told him that we don't believe in interns, we believe in employees, and our interns are treated like employees. So he's from the Eisenberg Institute, UMass Amherst, and certainly he's gotten, I think we've gotten our money worth out of Paul for the ferry, and he does all the calculations with collective bargaining moving forward. And then, of course, we meet with the finance department, Robbie and Steve, and we do the presentation to them, and they pick it apart, and then we're ready for you guys. So we'll take any questions of the ferry that you have, and then I'll move on to my next item.
Okay, listen, Paul, I want to thank you for your service. Every time I've come in the building, you've been there working, and you've been on that computer. So thank you very much for your service to the town of Winthrop. Pleasure having you. Okay, Barbara?
Have we ever determined who is using the ferry? Is it commuters? Is it Winthrop people using it for entertainment? Has it brought in tourists?
Tourists, I can say no, it has not. Paul, I don't know what number slide, maybe it's the first one. Can we go back to the first slide? So we broke it down to who's using it during the day and then charters. You know, out of the $9,000 that we took in approximately in the first month, Paul, can you just break down for us the charters?
So there's $2,000 from the Arbor tours.
Yes, Harbor tours.
Yeah, of that, $9,000 are from the Arbor tours. In terms of where else that's spent, there's a commuter package, which is just a discounted package of 20 tickets. That's brought in the third highest, just from Winthrop. We break down revenue based off departures, where the ferry departs from. So from Winthrop was the highest revenue outside of the, or just it was in general, actually.
So on the commuter package, most of the commuter package is coming from Winthrop, but they can buy them in 20 tickets for a discounted price. Per day boardings, Larissa informed me before coming down, people are getting on Winthrop about 5 in the morning to 15 coming from Quincy each, during the morning commute, for lack of a better word. So the tours run at night, and one ran out of Quincy, and one ran out of Winthrop, so Tuesday, Thursday, and those are like the nighttime cruises. And those bring in money, but again, the boat, I always said the boat would be much more successful running tours to the islands than it would be, but our grant specifically says we're a transportation ferry, and we have to do transportation if we're gonna keep the ferry.
Any other questions for Terry on the ferry?
Council President, thank you, Chief, for addressing this. The ARP money, any way any of that could supplement this revenue loss? It's still COVID. Can we recoup any of that lost
So
revenue?
we're looking at revenue loss. Paul and Steve specifically have been asked. I don't have a good figure with that, but again, do we want to use our lost revenue, or do we want to use our lost revenue? First, we have to commit to public health and anything moving forward with public health and making sure she's in a spot where she can manage any more pandemics. That's our first priority, right? Our second priority has to be, I think, our infrastructure. And I think we have to look at our capital plan and say, well, lost revenue, one-time money. We don't want to start using one-time money for reoccurring costs. So, I'm looking, to be honest with you, at our lost revenue to say, okay, what streets have we not reclaimed that need to be reclaimed? We're doing a lead pipe replacement project. Okay, the sidewalks, we took $75,000 out of the sidewalks during the budget cycle. We should be putting that in through the ARPAs once we determine lost revenue. So our lost revenue money can only can gap so much from lost revenue. And is this a priority and high enough when the community has other needs? Certainly Lisa is here tonight, and we're in conversations with Lisa to make sure that the kids get caught up in reading and where they fell behind during COVID, and what's that cost, and how do we help the schools get that replacement reading. So I just caution that if we're going to use lost revenue for the ferry, that it's one-time money. What are we going to do next year? I think any money we get from the state, it's going to come with a dictate. Don't come looking for any more. Figure this out. It's been 6 years, and you've always been at our door asking for us for money. So I think if we get money from the state, they're going to be very strict with us. And of course, I think as we lose power and strength in the legislative body, we're not going to have leverage to keep going back to the DOTs and the DEPs. They've been very kind and generous to us.
I'm just trying to get my handle on, so it was shut down last year. We didn't run it at all, correct?
Oh, we ran it last year. We did.
During COVID,
We ran it during COVID, yes. We had an abbreviated schedule, a reduced schedule as well, but it did run all the way through November. That's my belief.
But it was a short season, it wasn't.
It was a short season,
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, so like
Yep.
3 months or something like that. And so, and we looked at revenues from prior years before that were good years.
Yeah, so that's what Paul has done.
Yeah, and
we've
so I
been-
noticed we didn't put any of those up.
Well, I think we did, when we compared the full season to the prior to fiscal, the fiscal year prior. So, you can find a report online that I did last time I was serving in this position, and we're in the same exact position we are today. So it has never been even close to breaking even without grant money. Ever. So that's a concern. And, with 10,000 units coming in Beachmont and other units, going over there, if we do get grant money, are we looking to hire a transportation person that can draw and see if we can make it work? Yeah, of course we are. But those units are 2 or 3 years out in their building, too.
Any other questions? Councilor Terry, you can handle it?
Yeah, I just thank you guys for your work. It's very eye-opening, and when you really look at the numbers, I mean, it's one thing to look at the money, but when you break it down to people, real people that are getting on, the numbers are very low, and we have to understand that we also put in $500,000 of taxpayer money from the town general fund into this for the first 3.5 years. And if you take all the money that we've gotten from the grants, it's an incredible loss. But it would have been a fantastic service. And obviously with COVID, we're still not getting, I'm sure the office buildings are only at 40% capacity anyway right now, so you're not getting as many people using it for transportation, but we can't, you just can't keep putting good money after bad. And, we've been fortunate enough to have a reserve. That reserve isn't due from sales, it's really due from the money from the town, from the taxpayers, and from the grants. But there's tough decisions that have to be made, but it's better to make a decision now and
Well,
save something.
when you're running a service like this, engine replacement 2 years ago was $100,000. We're burning through our reserves, running an operation with no backup plan.
Right.
When you're running a transportation agency and department, you should have redundancy in service. We don't have redundancy in service. So there's a lot of fault gaps that need to be considered and closed if we're going to continue, if we're lucky enough to get some grant money to continue this operation. That's they're going to want me to look out 3-5 years and tell them what's our plan.
Yeah. Councilor Ruggiero.
Yeah, I think this is obviously disappointing. This is something we all want, like you had mentioned. But, there's part of me too that thinks, we got to keep in mind, I think the Sumner Tunnel's going to be closed all of next year. I'm not sure if that was taken into account with projections with offices in Boston, filling back up and the Sumner Tunnel being closed for the better part of 2022. Will that increase our commuter rate going into Boston? I just can't sit here and say that it's a bad idea to connect the town of Winthrop to the seaport, which is the largest financial hub in the city and probably New England, by ferry in 20 minutes or less. I don't think that's a bad idea. I don't think anyone in this room would say it's a bad idea. But, the numbers are there in front of us. So I guess that's just my question, was that Sumner Tunnel closure taken into account?
So when we talked and spoke to DOT, we did talk to them about the Sumner Tunnel closure.
Okay.
Again, was it built into our projections? No. What we did was look at historical data and how the ferry's been doing since inception,
Sure.
Which told us how it was performing, because even when we got money from, we got money from the MBTA from Quincy, and it was flowed through the DOT, because of the 2 train stations that were closed in Quincy. Those train stations are open now.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we had similar problems even with that issue in Quincy.
Right.
So we do see a lot more people boarding in Quincy than they do Winthrop. But that's, not to say it can't change. All I wanted to bring forward tonight is please understand the position I'm in as your manager, that if I'm at $0 and no commitment from anyone, all I need is a letter saying the money is coming. And we've been pushing and asking, where do we stand? They nicely say, we'll get back to you. I know Senator Boncory has been pushing on his end as well. So I'm hopeful that I don't have to shut it down, but we should keep this conversation on the front burner and determine our long-term plans with the ferry.
So you're asking that it remain on the agenda for the following meetings until we find out whether we're getting some money from DOT or not. Is that correct?
I think we can just update you, but when we do get the money, we're gonna have to figure out whether it's a working group of the council, what's the plan for next year, and how do we sustain it.
At what point do we have to cut it off? I mean, do we have to pay the salary of the captain? Do we have to reimburse the patrons for their receipts?
Yeah, we'd have to reimburse for the commuter packages.
So we basically have an idea of what.
Yeah, right. I can tell you right now, as I sit here, I have $30,000 in reserve left, and we're burning, about $6,000 a week.
We got about 5 weeks.
Yeah, and that's if nothing happens to the boat.
Okay.
We just had a propeller that was $4,200.
All right,
That's
thank
not
you.
with reimbursement or paying
real
the
quick one.
captain for the rest of it.
Let's take one more question on the
Captain's
ferry,
at-
and let's move on to the
Our
rest of the
at-will employees.
town manager's report.
990s, some of them are 990s. They're all at-will employees, so that they're weekly. They're weekly.
Do we
This
have,
is not going to get resolved tonight, so let's just,
yeah.
go ahead.
Chief, do we have any contractual obligations to the town of Quincy?
No.
Okay.
I refused to sign an agreement with them until we knew from the granting authorities whether or not we had money.
Okay, so, thank you.
Okay. Going on with your town manager's report, I think you have
Sorry.
the park and health.
Yeah, so I have the health department, a quick update. You did a beautiful job, so I'm going to skip the numbers. No sense of repeating them twice, but I will tell you, Meredith has been hard at work with the East Boston Neighborhood Trauma Team, the DA's office, and they're going to be facilitating, what is called a peace circle, but I think it needs a little explanation. So what it really is a safe spot for people to have conversation about, it'll happen on the anniversary of the shootings on Veterans Road and Shirley Street, and I think that's a nice way that people can come in and say how they feel. Meredith will be there, the DA's office will be there, I will be there as well. Tomorrow night, this was kind of put together this morning. I got firm plans tomorrow night. I will be at the temple. We made a commitment to the temple that we would do a meeting with them, with the district attorney's office, the state police, the FBI will come in as well to kind of review with them security plans, answer any questions they have, and again, we will probably try to put this together again in August for the general community. I've gotten commitments from the DA's office. I'm waiting for the commitments from the FBI, and the state police will come anytime I ask them. So when this is about figuring out who has the most trauma or how we can help them first, and then move our way out. It's a process. It's not something we're a small agency, small town, and we have to step this. It's not prioritizing because of any other reason other than we looked at who was harmed the most, and we'll meet with those people and work our way out.
Terry, who's invited for tomorrow night at the temple?
The council certainly is more than welcome to come. The temple has invited their congregation to come as well, and of course, last time we talked with the temple, other people came from the community. So please, I think it's open. The temple has always been open for invitations to anyone that wants to come. So thank you.
And the Circle of Peace that she's doing is on Monday night at the Senior Center, is that correct?
Yes, that's Monday night, the 26th, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Robert DeLeo Senior Center, 35 Harvard Street.
All right, and everybody is invited to that as well.
Everyone is invited to that. And just also, I just want to mention, since we're talking about people facilitating talking points and talking to each other. The one Winthrop, the Police Department for Kids Only, and the Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Relations Commission will be hosting Let's Talk next Tuesday and Thursday. It's posted on the town manager's Facebook and sites, and also one Winthrop's been pushing it out. We'd love people to sign up. You do have to register for that event, and that's an online event. So please, anyone that can push that word out would be greatly appreciated. The water rate will be set. Again, since there's no meeting before I have to set it in August, I wanted to advise the council I will be setting the water rate. Abrams Group is saying that we need a 99-cent water rate increase. Those are the consultants we hired. Internally, we've been talking, and we think a 63-cent water rate is what we will actually probably land on. We looked at many other factors, including our reserves. And when we look at our reserves, we have to remember we cannot borrow from MWRA until 2030. So our reserves have to handle water main breaks. We can borrow from other sources, but again, that costs the town more money. So the 63-cent increase, I believe, and I'll have the breakdown and have an information sheet out, 62 cents is directly affected by the increase from the MWRA. And then the 1 penny is insignificant, really, but it's for other costs associated with the water account to make up the 63 cents. But we will put an information sheet out. We will post it online so people understand why it's going up, and that's the best I can do. I know no one wants it to go up, including me. But the 99-cent would be if we start to see major influxes, but we don't think we're going to see major influxes in water use. So we're comfortable with 63 cents. And that's what Dick Hingston's been working with me to set that rate, who advises the council and the auditor for the council. So I think we're comfortable. Robbie, I think, is comfortable with that. Steve Caller's comfortable with that, and I'm comfortable with that. I don't think we need a 99-cent rate increase.
What is the current rate?
I'm sorry?
The current
I will get you that. I usually have the DPW director right here, and he's on vacation this week, so I will get you the current rate and put it on the sheet as well when we push it out, and what it's now and what it's going to.
Hey, thank you.
So we'll, I guess, we'll turn to some positive stuff. Miller's Field and certainly the tennis courts. So as a policy decision, and policy, it'll have to be the policy of the council on what we do with both facilities. Miller's Field certainly has always was in the school's custody and care, and then we took it out of the school's custody and care to accomplish a major renovation of the schools in Miller's Field, which I think we have done a great and tremendous job thanks to the Miller's Field Committee and of course the school building committee. They've worked hard on those projects, and then we expanded out and did the tennis courts over. So the question's got to be, and I'm just looking for direction, who's going to have custody and control over Miller's Field, and who's going to have custody and control over the tennis courts. The tennis courts has always been town property. We've managed it in conjunction with the schools, making school athletics a priority and having priority slots for practice and playtime on the tennis courts. My recommendation would be to leave the tennis courts in town custody and control. I work out an MOU with Lisa, the superintendent, Lisa Howard, and we would make sure she has the same priority slots, just as we did before. We already manage other tennis courts, and that court would be available for public play, consistent with the practices at Ingleside Park. So I've talked to the Parks and Recs director about that, and he certainly would have the one key that would fit the locks for each court. The same key would be for that. So once you have a key, they purchase the key that fits all the locks for all the courts, so they could actually play on that. But I would invite Lisa Howard to add any insight that she may have or angst that she may have and concerns. So Lisa, please.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me. So I've been involved with the Miller Field project since way back in the day when we were putting it out to the community for a vote to take that project on after we decided that we were going to build a new school, and the school was up, and we all figured out that you can't have a brand new beautiful school and a field that looks a little bit scary to play on, let alone a track to run on. So When Miller Field was built, I took a little bit of a hiatus from Winthrop and went on and did some work in another community while that project was going on, and somewhat stayed connected and keeping up to date on what was going on. And then lo and behold, returned as the field was taking sort of its space and finished up. So that finishing up, I've been here back for 4 years now, so we've sort of been finishing up for the past 4 years to get that field ready to be hopefully returned back to the school. So just to put it out there, the school, and when I say the school, I'm talking about the high school principal, the athletic director. I believe I speak for the school committee. However, if anybody on the committee is watching and does not agree or has changed their mind, we would like to take possession of the field back once it is completed. And I believe, I'm hoping that that is going to be soon. It was back in 2016, actually on April 11th, where I have some school committee notes about the turning over of the field to the community. At that time, Jim McKenna was the town manager. And so there's some language in the notes that there was a vote taken that once the project was completed, it was the intent of the town to return Miller Field to the school. I believe the protocols and maintenance agreements and work and sort of, some people would say, overbearing watch over Miller Field is doing exactly what the community has expressed to me when I came back to the town about taking care of the things that we own. Lots of conversations about how things weren't taken care of. And that became a real thing because of the 350 people I asked the same 6 questions to. The maintenance of the things that we own in our schools was a reigning theme. So if enough people talk about it, then it's certainly something one has to look into. And I think we've spent an inordinate amount of time over the past 4 years really focused in on the maintenance of the things that we own. I know we are a little bit overly with Miller Field, but there are solutions to that in terms of open time for the community. It's a $9.8 million facility minus the new field house that has been put in, which Jim would have a better sense on the cost of that. So it's not something that we take lightly in terms of the cost of that field and the need to keep it up and to make sure we know who's on the field. I've learned a lot about wearing heels on turf and why you can't do that, or riding razor scooters on tracks and why you can't do that. And so all of those things that we have put in place, and I credit the athletic director who's researched several facilities, and not many schools, just so folks know, not many schools are the sole, when you use the word owner and manager of athletic fields. Mostly communities do own them, however there are a few. I can tell you that, say Masco Gym, for example, the fields there that are pristine, because when they are open for community time or for school time, there is a management system that doesn't allow for damage to be done purposefully. Now, there's always an option to do that when the field is locked and somebody jumps a fence. But just leaving the gate open all day long for people to come and go would leave that field very vulnerable in a number of ways. So the school would like to take possession of that field back as soon as possible and work with the town on an MOU regarding open town hours for the town to be able to access the field as well. And that is going to require some form of understanding of how we're paying for the coverage of that field when it is open hours. Who's managing the field? Is it the school's management that's on the field? And if it is the school's budget, obviously would not be funding the open town hours, and so we would have to work that through with the town. But that would be our desire for Miller Field. And for the tennis courts, we've talked a lot about the tennis courts and an MOU that would allow the town to continue the usual and customary practice of utilizing the tennis courts, beautiful tennis courts. I'm a little hyper-focused on the sidewalks because I'm psyched that the kids are getting out of cars and not being able to just pull out onto the street. We now have guided sidewalks. So I believe that will continue to be the best case scenario, and I think a really brief MOU and some signage to go up that clarifies what the school hours may be in terms of use, so that community, if they should show up and there's a key that's, somebody's got the gate open because other people are using it, and we have a tennis match, that the community hours and the school hours would be clearly posted. And I do think that that would be a reasonable. You don't necessarily need to keep the gate locked. I don't know how Sean and Terry and I will work that out, but the use of the tennis courts is, the opportunity for damage is far less. It's also not as isolated as Millerfield is. There's lots of ways to kind of sneak into Millerfield or get in there. I know myself on a Sunday I've had to go in there and ask people to come out because they've hopped the fence over on Veterans Road. We're looking to address that moving forward. But I think the tennis courts are a little less difficult to control and more in our visual sight. I know Sean's on here. I don't know
Yeah, so if you could, the Parks and Recs Director, Sean Driscoll. Sean, if you have anything you'd like to add.
Sean?
I'm here, hello?
Hey, Sean.
Good.
Would like to add anything, Sean?
No, I'm all set. Just on the tennis court end of it, it only makes sense to me if we use the same type of system we had. We put it in Ingleside a few years ago and we did it over. So probably that's the best way to go. We would actually have to have, some more keys made stuff. The keys are starting to get a little expensive. We only budget so much, so we're gonna need some help with that going into at least the next year. But going forward, it's probably the best idea to do that. The recreation department, the parks department, we were never involved with any of the Millerfield stuff or the tennis courts, so I don't know really, I guess if it's signed off yet or not, if that makes any sense, but we are getting a bunch of calls about it and people interested to get going on it, so just a time frame would be good for us so we can let people know. We're getting a lot of emails and calls about it.
Okay, Sean, thank you. So, the question of Miller's Field, I think we can answer easily, that has been completed. The construction and everything else is complete there.
Not 100%.
Not 100%?
No, still punch list items to be done on the away bleachers, on the foundation around there, and just some things in the field house.
Okay.
I mean, but pretty close. I mean.
Tennis courts? Jim?
Tennis courts are done. There might be a few minor punch list items, but for the most part, the tennis courts are done.
Okay.
Okay.
So we would confirm
I'd like to see if we can get that open. I've been getting a lot of calls about opening the tennis court for the tennis players, so if we can make the determination to go.
I don't want to play on it until the punch list is complete, because then they're going to say, oh, you damaged that, we didn't finish that. So once we do have the heads up, and we'll check this week when we can get those punch lists done and push that as much as we can to open.
Do we know what's left?
No, just minor. I mean, everything major has been done. It's just minor stuff that they're just going over now.
Because
there might be a half a dozen items.
With all the water that we had in the past week and rain, I checked out that tennis court. It didn't have a puddle on it. It looked
Incredible.
fantastic.
There have been some puddling on the walkways going from Ocean View over to North Main on the residential side. So they're addressing those. But as far as puddling on the courts themselves, it's been incredible. I mean, they did a really good job.
They sure did.
So we look for direction from the council on those two major issues for the community. We're hitting you with a lot tonight, and my only final comment would be, we already began work on the fiscal '23 budget. Myself and Steve met with the superintendent yesterday, so we're looking at that. My hopes is to have Steve Cerulli, before he departs, to come before council and give a presentation on what the '23 looks like, given plenty of time for people to get adjusted to what our revenues look like and what our expenses is going to look like. I warned all the departments at the last managers meeting to be prepared to submit their budgets in October and not in February or December. So we want their budgets in so we can work on them and see where we all land and what the options are for the community.
Thank you. Mr. Town Manager, next thing we usually have on the agenda is the school department report. And since Lisa's here, I'll have her report on the last meeting we had last week.
I just shut my computer off. So our last school committee meeting that we had, we did quite a bit of work on my superintendent report, which is pretty much the entire meeting outside just regular budget business. I updated the committee that we are working on the final close and believe we will come in on target with the final close for this past school year. Certainly this school year's budget is open and up and running. One important thing for folks to understand is based on our end of the year student evaluations as well as our benchmark testing that we do throughout the school year with our students, in this sort of unprecedented school year, we had a lot of work to do to look at target points for our students as they return to us and transition back to the school. So I informed the committee of positions that we were adding, and the positions that we are adding are being funded through those one-time funds that the state is providing us with, whether it's ESSER money or additional grant funding. And they are, the positions that we're putting in are designed for very specific purposes. An example would be reading. And you know, obviously our students were not going to come out at the end of this school year as the same in terms of their reading because they're not in a classroom with teachers. Very difficult to teach kindergarten students and get them to reach their capacity through Zoom, and we all know that. So we've really looked at a number of areas. The key areas are first and second grade with reading and being able to lessen the class size to be able to really hone in on those reading skills in smaller groups. And then social emotional learning of our kids. So a high school adjustment counselor, an elementary school, an additional elementary school adjustment counselor, additional hours for our psychological services, and some other small things related to custodial and nursing. All that can be tied back to COVID and the impacts of COVID, and certainly in line with what we would be able to spend those funds for. Again, they're one-time services and one-time provisions for our school.
Excuse me, please, can I just ask you to step over here? People on Zoom can't hear you. They're not picking up the microphone there, so if you just take my chair and...
Sure, I would imagine it. So Peter Gill that must have called in to say that I can usually hear her because she's usually yelling, but now I can't, so he should be thankful for that. So again, just we're adding positions next year, one-time positions using grant funding for the purpose of COVID recovery. When COVID recovery in the school district, we need 5 years of one-time funding because I believe that's the minimal amount of years that we are going to need to recover from this in a multitude of ways. And our school district is meeting sort of ad nauseum, looking at our strategic plan to see what we have accomplished, the 15 months that we were sort of with our backs against the wall, and revising that to make sure that we are really intently focusing on the social emotional well-being of our students. COVID was impactful. Then we get hit again with another tragedy, and we are not shy about the length of time that it's going to take us to figure out how to mitigate and support our students and staff. We also, with the school committee, went over the timelines of all the work that's been done, which I went over, I believe it was the council. Was it the council? Oh, no, it was another group that we met with, the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Community group. We went over all of the steps that we're taking together, including the agencies that we're using to provide counseling for our kids and families in the moment, and then the long-term plan for that moving through the school year, which includes outside agencies such as Riverside. And the other items we talked about, our Leadership Academy is up and running right now. Our administrators are meeting all day long for this particular week to, again, go over our strategic plan, determine what things we need to move forward and what things we need to dial back on that we weren't able to get at last year, as well as look at the success that we have had over the past school year. And I want to be very clear, there has been a lot of success over the past school year. We've had sadness, we've had tragedy, we've had difficulty, we've had trauma. We have had success, and it's super important for us to outline that. So that's part of the project that we're working on right now, to make sure that we remember all the good things that we have accomplished, so we can create a motto for the next school year about what our MO is moving forward. And positivity is sort of where we're at right now. Can't change the past, but we certainly can make the future look bright, and that positive attitude is going to be super important for our kids. Our new business manager started today, school business manager, sorry, yesterday. And so he's getting his feet wet. Hopefully he's not an additional trauma, because he's coming in and he really doesn't know what's going on here, and we're trying to get him up to speed. And he's really excited about working with both the town side and the school side in looking at our budget and seeing how it can be more creative in the way we do things. There's a lot of moving parts with all the additional funds we have, and they have to be used appropriately. And I believe he is the best person to do it. So that was it for the school district's report.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It was very thorough.
Just one quick, I just want to, on behalf of council, I just want to thank, we don't get to talk to you guys all that much, but send best wishes to Susan Eccles for her years of service. I mean, it's a tremendous loss to the school system, and we wish her nothing but the best in her retirement.
She's blessing us by allowing herself to stay a little bit extra to do that transition, so that there's really transparency.
Yep.
And so that Noel Velez, who is our new business manager, is able to have her at his ready to ask those questions that he needs to ask her. So Susan's been awesome.
Do you have a question for school committee? Okay, go ahead, Barbara.
Thank you, Lisa. I found that very informative. I have been getting emails about part of the website that's been coming down. Can you explain what's going on there?
Sure. So I was going to try to avoid that tonight. Sorry. Because, and I say that with all due respect, because the school district's website is not the town's, it's not the town's oversight. It's the school department's oversight. So if you give me a second, I just want to grab a piece of paper so I don't miss something that I want to share. And I had to put this in writing, because I've had also a lot of questions, concerns, and emails. And depending upon when somebody calls me, questions me, or sends me an email, will depend upon my answer, because this is a project in motion. So, although the public has the right to express themselves to different committees, the town council and the town manager obviously actually have no jurisdiction over what goes up on the school district's website. And I say that with all due respect, and I feel bad that people are torturing you with emails about a concern about the school. I should be the one getting those emails, and I've been clear in each response that that's the case. So the resource page that we developed by our internal school-based DEI team, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion team, which has been up and running in a formal sense for over a year. So this is not a reaction of anything that happened in June or something that took place a few months ago. It's part of our strategic plan. We considered putting up this resource page, which is simply a resource page for families, as a positive step in moving our plight forward to continue up the good work with diversity, equity, and inclusion. The resource is planned to be a work in progress, and it is not designed as a mandatory read by any community members, and it is not intended to guide the work of the K-12 instruction in our school district. This was our group's first attempt at providing a hub of information for the public. Upon initially making the site active for viewing for families in the community, we, which is our internal school-based work group, agreed to post the information that was free of political content and inclusive of all. After posting for the first time, we quickly realized in our excitement to get things up and running quickly, that we inadvertently missed some of the content that had a political tone in it, and we wanted to make sure that we stuck to our mission. And so when I say we, it was me who chose to pause the website. As a school-based work group, we decided, with my agreement, to pause the webpage, take a deeper look at the postings that we had up, and to ensure that the content was reflective of our group's prior agreement and plan, with an understanding that we would provide access once that process was fully completed. Over the course of the past several weeks, some people have communicated that this decision is one that was driven by the influence of political pressure and/or demanded by others, causing me to remove the page. That is simply not true. There was useful feedback that did prompt us to review our own work. And during the review process, I made the ultimate decision to pause so that we could reflect and determine what, if any, adjustments needed to be made. Again, the intent of our work was to provide resources for people to actually voluntarily access, to expand their own knowledge base. It is not reflective, it is not a reflection or a guide related to the instruction in our school. Our staff has been intently focused on this work. This is the same staff that doesn't work in the summer. It's our adjustment counselors and some of our special education chair people and a few other people in our group. And on the 26th of June, when we were sort of closing out our school year, we had our tragedy and we shifted our focus. So after pulling the page down to do some more deep work and make sure that we were really putting things up voluntarily for people. So this is one of those things where you do something good and then all of a sudden it becomes more of an issue. We couldn't all sit back down right away and do that work. One, these people don't work in the summer, and two, I have them here working in the summer to work to address the June 26th issue that we had, the tragedy that we had, in setting up counseling, door knocking, calling parents, and they have still been at that. So we have not been able to go back at this resource page that you don't have to click on if you don't want to learn. It's like going to the library. You don't have to walk there and open the door if you don't want to go in. We're not asking people to click on this. We're simply making it available. But we had a mission. And, you know, I'm a firm believer of making mistakes to get better at what we do. And when you make a mistake by putting something up too quickly and somebody brings something to your attention that you said you weren't going to do, you do the right thing and you pause it. And you go back to doing what you said you were going to do. And that's the whole DEI website, DEI resource page pause that people have now turned into somewhat of a, I guess everything gets turned into somewhat of a political discussion, but that's sort of where it's headed. And that saddens me because we were doing good work to help people. And that won't deter us. We're not going to be pressured by that. However, we will stick to our mission. So if folks have questions about that or you get emails about that, the school's website is run by the school. So it should kind of come back here. And I appreciate those who have sent me that information.
Thank
so it
you,
will
Lisa.
be back up and running when we decide we're going to put it back up and running. And that's when it will be ready for everybody. Thank you.
That proves the old adage, no good deed goes unpunished,
Well, I was
right?
going to say that, but I've got to hang on to my job.
And thank you for our counselors that have
understand.
been working through the summer to help us. We appreciate that.
All right, moving on. We'll now go into old business.
Can we just ask the town manager a couple of things on his report? Or
Oh,
just,
I thought we had finished that, but okay.
Yeah,
We went to school.
whatever,
oh, okay.
Mr.
Just,
President, whatever you.
just two things on the, well, one thing actually, just on the curbing at the, you know, that we're down the center with the CBD doing that project, which is going along, moving along. It's, but I had talked to somebody from Geosa the other day and asked them if the town was taking the curbing, because they're putting in all new curbing. And we have many sections of town that are in need of curbing and maybe future plans or whatever, and he said they're more than willing to give us the curbing. So just if you could maybe pass that on to Steve and see, I mean, there's 8,000 linear feet of curbing on that project, so.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure the foreman down there is not the owner of the company, so that might have been within the bidding process and contract, so I
Right,
just want
I
to
don't
make sure of
think
that,
it
but
was,
Steve will
but-
know that.
Yeah.
Steve will know it. I'll certainly relay that to him.
Thanks.
Does anybody else have any questions for either Lisa or Terry? Okay, moving on then. Let's go to old business. The first item on the agenda for old business is a motion that I am going to make, and in doing so, I am going to pass the gavel to Counselor at Large DeMarco. And the motion I am making is that the town council, according to the Winthrop Town Charter, Section 4.4B, accept the appointment by Council President Philip Boncory of Terrence Delahanty as interim town manager for a period of 90 days, beginning July 27th, 2021, until October 26th, 2021, or to any other action thereto. Is there a second? Second.
Discussion on the motion?
Just quickly, Terry's first 90-day appointment would end before we have another meeting. So this is the meeting that we have to, if we're going to give him another 90 days, this is the time we have to do it. And I wholeheartedly am supporting and asking you to accept that appointment by me of Terry Delahanty. He has done a great job for the past 90 days, and he is appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any discussion?
Just echo the same comments, couldn't agree more. Thank him for the first 90 and appreciate the second 90 and see what goes on from there. But thank you so much, you are very much appreciated.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Stephen?
Are you sure?
That's exactly.
Just take the vote.
Don't ask my wife. Yeah, exactly.
No, but thank you. I just want to echo those comments as well. It's been great working with you.
Same here.
All right, if there's no other discussion, the motion's on the floor. Let's take the roll call.
Counsel Ruggiero?
Yes.
Counsel Flockhart?
Yes.
Counsel DeMarco?
Yes.
Counsel Terry?
Yes.
Counsel Honan?
Yes.
Counsel Conti?
Yes.
Counsel Farino?
Yes.
Vice President Christopher? President Boncory?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Under old business, motions coming out of Finance Committee to appropriate $80,000 for the East Boston, E.B. Newton Clock Tower.
Council President, there's a motion that Town Council vote to appropriate $80,000 from the E.B. Newton Fund balance to a new account entitled Fiscal Year 22 Clock Tower Repairs for repairs to the E.B. Newton Clock Tower or take any other action relative thereto. This did come out of committee with positive recommendation.
Okay, motion's been made by the Finance Committee to appropriate $80,000 for the E.B. Newton Clock Tower. Is there any discussion on the
I
motion?
just have one question.
Councilor Farino, who brought this up to begin with?
Yes, so I'm just curious why the motion was as read with the restriction of just 1 year to put it in there. So I didn't see it on the,
It didn't say 1 year. It's just, it put into a new account. The account could be fiscal year '24. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's just an account as to when it was created. So it was created in fiscal
Okay,
year
so it-
'22.
so it's
It
in
does
there
not
in
have to be spent.
perpetuity
It's
until
in there
it's-
until it's spent or until, you know, over the past 3 budget cycles, we've had a lot of special articles that have had small balances that we've just closed out, and it reverts back to general fund. In this situation, we're just creating a new special article. It's there until we use it.
okay, thank you.
All right. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye when your name is called. Roll call.
Counsel Ruggiero?
Yes.
Counsel Flockhart?
Yes.
Counsel DeMarco?
Yes.
Counsel Terry?
Yes.
Counsel Honan?
Yes.
Counsel Conti?
Yes.
Counsel Farino?
Yes.
Vice President Christopher? President Boncory?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Council President?
Yes.
I move that the town council vote to transfer $155,000 from salary reserve account to the fire department budget to cover the cost associated with the fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21 collective bargaining agreement or take any other action relative thereto. This also comes out of committee with positive recommendation.
Okay, a motion's been made by the committee, which doesn't need a second, to transfer $155,000 to the fire department budget to cover the costs associated with bargaining. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye when your name is called. Please take a roll.
Counsel Ruggiero?
Yes.
Counsel Flockhart?
Yes.
Counsel DeMarco?
Yes.
Counsel Terry?
Yes.
Counsel Honan?
Yes.
Counsel Conti?
Yes.
Counsel Farino?
Yes.
Vice President Christopher? President Boncory?
Yes. Motion carries. Next items on the agenda for discussions under old business on the dog park and the flag policy. And I believe the Finance Committee discussed the dog park today.
Yes, not the flag policy.
No,
We
not the
discussed-
flag policy. Flag policy is going over to next month's meeting.
We discussed the dog park and the golf club shed.
Yes.
And we brought it forward to the council for a vote as to the dispensation of the contract. We went out for an RFP, the contract came back, it was over budget, but we need to give an answer to the contractor. The options would be to say no, go back out to bid, and run the risk of having, well, it's pretty likely that the bid would come in higher. We don't have much, I mean, if we were building something else and we said, hey, why don't we change the scope and change the parameters and not have lights or this or that, that would be an option. And here, we really don't have the option. The dog park is pretty basic, it is what it is. And the shed is contractually written as to what we need to replace it with. So we don't have a lot of options into lowering it or lessening the size of it. So the option would be to not do it, which we are obligated to do, or to try to rebid, in which case it will probably come in higher. We do not, I'm not expecting anybody to come up with a financing agreement as to where the additional money will come from. We are gonna go back over the finances with the Miller Field Foundation, committee, and see what, if anything, is left there, and then we will come back to the town, with issues as to where we're gonna resolve the financial concerns. But right now, we need to come back with an answer if it's something that we wanna go forward with.
Okay, so that is a motion?
It is a motion from me. It's not coming out of committee with a motion. I am making the motion to accept the bid.
Okay, a motion has been made by Council Farino to accept the bid. Is there a second?
It's Councilor Lettieri, but
No,
that's
what did I
okay.
say? I'm sorry.
I know it's 8:30, Phil.
Can I just speak on this for 2 seconds?
All right, but first, let's have a second.
Second.
I'll second it. Yeah.
Well, see, what I knew he was gonna second it, because he always seconds all your motions.
Well, I'm gonna hold off on the second, on this one.
But, well,
I'll second it for discussion.
okay, so motion's been made by Council Lettieri and seconded by Council DeMarco to move forward with the dog park and the maintenance shed. Is there any discussion? I think Council Farino had his hand up to make.
Prior to the, during the meeting, we had, I had a conversation with Karen Wynn from the Conservation Commission. And her conversation was basically that there was no sign-off on the permit from the Concon for the shed or the dog park. I spoke to Denise, who is acting as the Conservation Commission agent. She said it was signed off on. So there's a conflict. So wasn't comfortable with doing this because naturally we have to have both of them signed off on before we put it out to bid or before we accept the bid. So that's my only concern. Otherwise, I'd be moving forward with it. And I think that was, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, your concern also, Councilor Honan. So that's where we stand. If I know it's time sensitive, this issue, because the contractor wants a vote, wants a handshake or whatever it is, a sign off on the bid. So if we had the right information or a consensus of that information, I'd feel more comfortable endorsing it, but I don't.
It was my understanding that it went to the Conservation Committee. They approved it with conditions that have to be made, and that's why the contract was signed to begin with, because we couldn't sign the contract without that permission.
Right, right.
Is that correct?
We haven't signed a contract. We haven't signed a contract, and the contract is not pressuring it. It's a 60-day requirement once the bids are open.
30B,
Right. So.
statutory requirement.
Right. We won't sign the contract until we award the bid and until we have funding in place. But we need to respond to the bid. My understanding is, because we did this with Miller Field when we were doing the tennis courts, and we had to make sure that there was an order of conditions for the tennis courts before they were done, which there were. And we've been told several months ago, I thought, that there was an order of conditions for the dog park and golf shed. Then those order of conditions would have to be met during the construction, and have to be done with certain things. But our understanding is, I know as far as Miller Field is gone, our understanding is that there has been an order of conditions.
I can send it to everybody if you want to get a copy of it. I have it right here.
So we have the order of the conditions
You have the,
for the dog park and the golf club
shed,
shed.
And it's signed off by the Conservation Committee?
Yep.
but see, I think what Carol went by telling is, final approval doesn't come until after the
Right.
construction.
No, I definitely had the conversation that she thought it should go out, should be signed before it goes out to bid.
I'll double check with Karen, make sure, but like I said, it's already been sent to, Leventis or Woodward, and Karen has already been sent out to LEC, who's handling the environmental. But I'll double check and make sure on everything tomorrow.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, the motion's been made and seconded that we allow town manager to go forward with this project in the bid that we have at the current time. All right, and I believe that's what's in front of us. And I think it would be up to the town manager to check all of those things before moving forward. But I think we can give him permission to move forward or not move forward.
I'd like to amend the motion to pending the verification of the signatures from the Concom.
What is the condition?
Okay, so an amendment is made to add the wording
Pending.
pending
Oh,
certification
Construction
of the orders.
will not proceed without the conditions being signed by COMCOM. That's what allows me to comply with 30B, allows me to sign their contract and delay their construction until we get COMCOM, that we're on the same page with COMCOM, because Denise has the conditions here, so we'll zoom on that tomorrow.
Okay, is there a
I'll
to
second the amendment. Yeah, I'll second the amendment to
Is
the,
there any discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
aye.
Those opposed? All right, on the motion as amended, the motion is to let, direct Terry to go forward with the contract if Conservation has signed off on it. Is that correct, by the amendment? All right, is there any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those,
Real quick, so just to be completely clear, we're voting right now to, on if we're going to accept the bid, not on the how we're going to do this. Okay.
We're voting on
just-
accepting the bid.
Got it, okay. Nothing contractual.
No.
We're
Can't sign
either
a
going
contract until the
to
funding.
accept the bid or we're not. So that's
Right.
what we're deciding right now. Okay,
okay,
got it.
everybody got it? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. All right, moving on, as I said, the flag policy is not up for discussion. The Rules and Ordinance has not met, and Councilor Vice President Christopher is out of town until Friday, so I'm sure they will have something for us at the next meeting. Under new business, again, the first issue on there is the management of the Miller Field and tennis courts MOU. We have already had the discussion from Terry and Lisa on it. Does anyone on the council want to make a motion to send it to committee? Or do we,
I'd like to discuss it a little bit if we can, but I don't know if we can if it's new business.
Should it go to capital assets?
okay, yeah, I guess a new business can go to capital assets, so I will refer that to capital assets to come back at the next meeting. I would like to get this thing moving as quick as possible so that we can open both of them. So,
We can open the tennis
Yeah, there won't be
courts.
any delay in
It's just
opening.
that we're-
There'll be
we could
delay
open
of who's planning it and who's managing it.
okay,
So we'll assume that we continue to manage both at
let's
this point.
try to find out as soon as we
Yeah, I'd
can,
like
when
that.
we can open it and have a ribbon cutting for the tennis court and then
Yeah.
invite the tennis community there. Okay, moving on. Winthrop Foundation funding, there is a motion, and this motion is coming from Terry Delahanty. And it said, I move that the Winthrop Town Council issue the following order relative to the distribution of funds to the Winthrop Foundation. All right, in accordance with Section 1-3 of the Winthrop Town Charter and Article 4th, Paragraph D of the Winthrop Foundation Declaration of Trust, the town of Winthrop by and through the Winthrop Town Council hereby elects and directs that all funds received by the town of Winthrop under the applicable foundation grant to be distributed to a banking institution and further distributed according to the provisions of said Article 4th, Paragraph D, and it's further ordered that the treasurer collector of the town of Winthrop is hereby authorized to take action relative to executing this order. Now, what that motion means is that the Massport has given us the additional $500,000 to go into the Winthrop Foundation, but when they give us the money, it comes to the town and not directly to the foundation. So we have to take it by this motion from the town's funds and give it over to the foundation. Now, do we need to send this finance?
It does, I mean, it's
All
gonna,
right.
yeah.
So that motion will be sent to Finance Committee for a quick resolution, because I know they want to give us part of that money to finish the dog park. So let's try to get that through as quickly as possible. Okay. I have no other appointments for tonight other than Terry Delahanty. So I will move on to public comment again. Again, the number is 1-301-715-8592 with an ID number of 840-4030-3036 pound. Is there anyone who has a hand up on public comment?
Karen Chavez.
Karen?
Mr. Council President, if I was there tonight, I couldn't have taken the amount of notes that I've taken to talk about. First of all, congratulations to Chief.
You got 3 minutes, Karen, even with all those notes.
Well, congratulations to Chief Paul Flanagan for his years of service to the town and his family's years of service to the town. And he certainly will be missed, and I imagine most by Chief Delahanty. They've had a very close relationship for the last few years. Congratulations to Chief Delahanty on being appointed for another 90 days as our town manager. As far as the ferry is concerned, I don't think anybody has any question about how I feel about the ferry. In 2018, the current interim town manager, who was the interim town manager at that time, gave us his thoughts on the ferry, and nobody seemed to listen to him. So here we are, 3 years later, and the ferry is still running in the red, no matter what anybody says. As Councilor Terry said, the town gave the ferry $500,000 over a 3.5-year period to continue to run, and evidently they could not continue that. And Paul, I'm sorry, I don't know what your last name is, but congratulations on a great report. As I understand, the water sewer rates now, instead of being $23.65, will be $24.28. If I'm wrong, please correct me. The tennis courts at the high school, I think the setup that they have at Ingleside is great, but I did hear what Sean Driscoll said, and there could be some money in the SBAC, because when we distributed that $1.5 million, I believe, there was still a few dollars left there. So there could be some money there that could help out as far as those keys and locks are concerned. And as far as my email that I sent to every member of the council, I hope that you did read it. And I hope that you understand where I'm coming from. That is why I am saying I think that the golf club maybe needs to be asked to contribute to some of this construction cost. The Miller Field Committee allocated $275,000 to build a maintenance shed for the golf club. The shed that was there was a piece of crap. And that's the only words I can use. I don't believe there was even any flooring in it. And when Gilbane wanted to move it, they said if we move it, it'll fall apart. There is so much rot in there. The golf club wanted a bathroom. They wanted a eye wash station. They wanted an office. They wanted a Taj Mahal, which they are not gonna get. But they are getting something that's 100% better than what was there. The only other thing I have to say, Mr. President, is tonight I heard you refer to the town manager and superintendent many times by their first name. And I although we're all very friendly, I don't think that that should continue. I really don't have anything else to say. Sorry I wasn't there tonight, but if I was, like I say, I would not have been able to make the amount of notes that I did make.
Okay, thank you very much, Karen. Is there anyone else on public comment?
I think one of this caller would like to. The caller, I think this is Diane Sands. I know you.
Hello?
Texting to speak.
Yes, hi.
Hi. Can you tell us who it is? Because the name doesn't come up.
Oh, sorry, it's Diane Sands, Precinct 5.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm very well, thank you. Wait a minute. Shut that off. I have a couple of questions, some of which Karen just reviewed. I recently learned that the golf club has had its contract renewed and amended last January. So I'm just hearing about this, and I'm not sure why it wasn't discussed at a council meeting or why it wasn't more open. Apparently, they are in arrears for their taxes and water bill to the tune of $230,000. And they were only paying $1,250 a month in rent, which is a bargain for a business with that much land, I would say. So it seems like the contract was amended for, I think there was $56,000 taken off what they owed in their back payment for their taxes and water bill, and their rent, which was $1,250 a month or $15,000 a year, was taken down to $1 a year, if I'm not mistaken, for 3 years. And then started last October 1st, 2020. So my questions are, did the council take a vote on this? And I know that the town manager couldn't act arbitrarily on his own on a project like this, so who approved it without the town being involved? I just want to know what kind of tax base this club contributes to the town of Winthrop. It just seems like they don't really offer much to the town. You know, Mondays you can golf on a work day, a couple of hours at the club. And they get a huge break from the town. Now, I think Karen just talked about the building. I understand that the building is something like $375,000 that it's going to cost. That's huge. And for what? I mean, I did hear that the former building was, as Karen described, so I won't go into it again. But I'm wondering how this happened without the town being involved, and really what their commitment is to the town, to help the town, to pay, taxes to the town, and help the people of the town. I'm wondering how this goes on. And that's one of my questions. And my other question, as I normally ask, how many suits does the town currently have ongoing? I have one more thing to add. The flag policy, I know you're not going to discuss till the next meeting or so. I did send an email to all of you, which I hope you read, and I will send it again if you haven't, just to point out some dangers, I think, to consider when you discuss and decide on this policy. And I also want to offer my congratulations to Paul and Terry. That's it. Thanks so much. Can you answer my question?
Thank you, Diane.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Is there- And we can research that. The town manager, of course, does have
He has the full
agreement
authority over the town
over
property.
any property in
So
Winthrop.
the town manager
And I
can
believe the
legally
initial
act alone.
agreement was with McKenna and the golf course and
I
whoever
think
the president was at that time.
I think the latest one was signed by Austin.
By
Faison.
Austin and the new president, whoever that.
I think it was just,
think it
yeah,
was
the new president down the golf club, yes, and I don't know who that was. I have had
I think
reviewed.
now it's Rob
that,
Noonan,
but-
and back when McKenna did it, it was Joe Ferrara, but I believe town manager did both those things.
Yes.
Two different town
and
managers.
I think, and that there was an legal right and authority to do, and to deal with the town property.
Yeah.
That is under their authority, under the charter, and under their contractual agreements. And, you know, I don't think I can opine or give information on why the council wasn't advised, or, that's, you know, something that someone else would have to answer, because I don't have those answers for the community or for you.
Can the manager offer an abatement to a tax,
So we've had.
an entity of a tax base?
So we've had, you know, entered into agreements in the past with other people, other than the golf course, to mitigate levy and liens, and so we've had done it. It's not out of the ordinary that we've done it. Usually we do it with private homeowners and stuff like that, but, you know, back
They set
back
up a
in
payment plan.
2018,
Yeah.
we brought D'Ambrosio and Brown in. D'Ambrosio and Brown now does all that through tax title and agreements through tax title, so there's an organized way we do it now. Before that, before we brought D'Ambrosio and Brown, the town manager picked, and who he's gonna enter an agreement with, so there's more consistent policy and
It's within the purview
practices.
of the town manager to negotiate those things.
Yeah, it certainly is.
Okay, let's move on. Is there any other public comment? Hopefully you got some answers, Diane. Is there any other public comment?
There's no hands up.
No other hands up? I will close public comment. Public relations, we already talked about the Winthrop Peace Circle, which will be July 26th, 6 to 9 at the Senior Center. If you want to sign up for the One Winthrop's communications with the CDICR,
Let's talk.
that you have to get online and you have to register. I registered for it today. There were 2 sessions, there's 7 PM on the 27th and 7 PM on the 29th. So you register for that if you would like to get involved. The next thing is that Thursday night at 6 PM, which we didn't announce, there will be a family fun night at Ingleside Park. When Sean was online, I wanted to catch him on that. And that will be Thursday night, and I think Thursday, they're also starting construction on that Ingleside Playground Park. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so those are 2 good things Thursday. There's also an Arbor Party fundraiser for the trees in Winthrop, and that will be at the E.B. Newton Cultural Center on August 7th, 2021, from 1 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Does anybody else have any announcements?
Just one, based on what Karen said on the water rate, that's a 2.6% increase for anybody looking for percentages on the 63 cents. And I'm going to have a precinct 2 meeting for anyone who's interested. It's going to be here in the Harvey Room next Tuesday, 6 to 8.
Okay, that will be a precinct 2 meeting.
Just, I had one thing that came to my desk today, the meat market, who's going to invite other businesses as well to do an appreciation night for first responders, for the community to also come out and thank the first responders, and that's scheduled for August 4th.
I know.
And on that, I think it's 5:30 to 8 on that night, but I'll double check and we'll post that as well. Thank you.
Okay, where will that be, you know?
It's going to be in the square here. So it's traditionally behind the meat market as well.
Yeah.
We'll have other activities. Parks and Recs is going to send over some face painters and the bouncies for the kids and stuff like that, so.
Yeah. Okay, anyone else? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn by Councilor Lettieri. Is there a second by Councilor Ruggiero? Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, we are adjourned. Thank you.